Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone. It's so nice to have you here wherever you're joining us from in the world. This is USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is Entrepreneur and So Much More. The star of our show is Mr. Justin Mirigliani. Let's bring him out and find out what he has been up to. Welcome.
Hi, Dr. JACALYN. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
All right. Sounds like there could be a little room there for...
There could be room for improvement.
Moving the needle up the notch a little bit, right?
Yeah. We could. That'd be nice.
Well, Justin, you're involved in doing so many things. I know you're a wonderful husband and father and son and advocate for the Crohn's Colitis Foundation, and you're an entrepreneur and you have your own charity. I mean, we could go on and on and on. And it's tiring, isn't it, to have to pick yourself up every day and generate that level of energy to really motivate you to do all those things? I find that myself. What are your thoughts?
That's certainly an issue, I think, with all entrepreneurs and people who aren't even entrepreneurs, people who are working for a company. How do you stay motivated every day? And you know what? I think more and more the answer is you don't. That's really the short answer to it. I think a lot of times people look at you or me or anybody who's an entrepreneur and anyone who's had success and think, oh, well, they must have all the answers. They must be always up. They must be always ready to go. And that's just not the case. And there are days that you just can't do it. And that's okay. I think where the problem comes in is when those days turn to weeks and those weeks turn to months and those months turn to years. If you never get yourself back up, then that's the problem. Think of a boxer. The fight's not over when a boxer gets knocked down. The fight's over when the boxer doesn't get up. And that's really what we're talking about here. And for me, and I've been pretty open about this, not only here, but also on my social media, I suffer from an anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and also depression, clinical depression. And right now I'm in the middle of really an experiment, and is the best way to say it. It's when you're working with the medications for mental illness, it's not really a one size fits all type of thing. In fact, there's probably 30, 40 different drugs that are out there. And not only that, but it's usually not just when you're in a position that I am. So I grew up with this. This is something that is not new. It was from really birth, like from as far back as I can remember having these problems. So I honestly think I was born this way. But especially in a case where it's long-term like mine, it's usually not one medication. It's a cocktail of multiple medications. And that's where I'm struggling right now, is trying to find what the cocktail is for me. Then you have to worry about the side effects. Some of the side effects can be pretty nasty. Weight gain, pre-diabetes, and that type of thing. So trying to fight through all that has been hard for me over the last, I would say, especially since November-ish is when we started kind of playing with the drugs a little bit. So are there days that I'm able to get through it? Yeah, I mean, I'm here, I'm on the show. I worked last week, and what wasn't easy, but I can tell you, I'm just being honest, over the weekend, Saturday, I went to bed at 9 o'clock at night and didn't get up until 10:30 the next morning on Sunday. I was just so exhausted from battling through the depression, the anxiety. And then I'll share a few other things that had happened over the last couple of weeks that have made it even worse, but that's just the long and the short of it. So if you think that you're the only one who ever feels that way, where you can't dig yourself out of a hole, it's not really true. We all feel that way. I'm not going to let this turn into a way. I'm not going to let it be a crutch for me to say, okay, well, just you're depressed, so don't do anything. I'm going to have to fight through, but it is certainly not easy.
Justin, I always love how authentic and transparent you are about what you're going through, because it really does give people inspiration and hope. And people see, like when you were backstage, I said, "Well, you have a big smile on your face. Looks like everything is great." So
Right.
you are still showing up and sharing your journey to help someone else. So thank you very much for doing that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, and you know about what happened with my daughter over the couple weeks ago. We had an incident where
Tell that story, please.
yeah, we were going skiing, and I didn't realize that she wasn't right next to me. She was a first time skier, and again, when you're depressed, you're looking for things to try to get out of the depression. And one thing that I thought of is I like to ski. It's pretty fun. And my 11-year-old Rebecca had never been skiing before, so wouldn't it be great for us to go out to the mountain and just have a day, the two of us, a daddy-daughter day, and just get on the slopes? And we were getting to one of the lifts, and for a second, I turned my head to ask the attendant where the little hills were. They call them I'm sorry, not diamonds, green circles. And the green circles are for really novice skiers, and that's what she is. And when I turned my head to ask that question, I didn't realize that Rebecca hadn't been able to get up to me. I think she stopped, and then she couldn't get started again. So the lift kind of took me away. And the problem that was bad enough to have my daughter, 11-year-old, who had never been skiing before, in a ski lift by herself. But the other issue was I turned around as best I could. You know, you're in a big coat, you're on a ski lift, you're bogged down, and I'm a pretty big guy. I'm about 245 pounds, so trying to turn around wasn't easy. And I did partially turn around and scream to her, put the safety bar down, because you're obviously in danger of falling if you don't have that safety bar down. And then I'll never forget how chilling it was when she said, "Daddy, I can't reach the safety bar." And oh my goodness, I mean, talk about panic. The next 5 to 7 minutes were me just yelling to her, "Don't move, do not move, hook your arm around the back of that lift and don't move," because I didn't want her to reach for the safety bar knowing she couldn't reach it anyway, because she'd lean forward to reach for it and possibly fall. So, um, yeah, there's a lot of self blame there. You wonder, if had I not talked to the attendant, would I have realized that she wasn't next to me? Should I have? What could I have done differently? The thought of, could I have jumped out as my lift was taking off and bail out? I mean, I probably would have gotten pretty hurt, but uh, it plays on your mind. So, yeah, I mean, that didn't help. Certainly, I was hoping for a day that would take my mind off of anxiety, and instead, it was a day that is still now has me anxious. Just the thought of it, when I think back to what that was like, that feeling. You're up maybe 3 stories, 4 stories, I guess, at the highest. So obviously, if she did fall, you could imagine what would probably have happened, and I can imagine what probably would have happened. So yeah, I mean, you try not to think about these things and dwell on them, but it's awfully hard not to.
It's incredible. When I saw the post that you put up there on Facebook, and I got chills thinking about it. And one thing that I think is really something to focus on is that she is safe.
Right.
She is safe. And who knows what the lesson is, but we can dwell on something that happened and try to figure out, well, what could I have done differently? And I'm all for that for a little amount of time.
Right.
I always like to focus on what is the solution? What is the solution? So in that case, thank God, thank the universe, thank whomever, whatever, that she's fine and that you're fine. And what can happen in the future so something like this doesn't happen again?
And that's what I'm looking to do. I'm not looking for a lawsuit or looking to punish anybody. Because I guess, they could point the finger at me and say, hey, you weren't paying attention. But I didn't. It wasn't that I wasn't paying attention. I was asking the attendant what how I could take care of her on the top of the hill, not knowing that she wasn't next to me. So it wasn't a matter of me just kind of shooting the breeze with the attendant. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I hope that not only ski slopes here, but maybe around the world would think about how do we put a little kid who's 11 years old on a lift and not know if they can reach the safety bar or not. It seems to me that there's got to be a better
I just find skiing terrifying. So I remember, I think on a chairlift, and then when you get to the top, it just drops you off, right?
It does, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, listen, I give you both credit for doing it because to me, it's just a big red X of fear. So,
Yeah, and I love snow. I really do. I love the winter time. So it's nice to be out there. And then the snow guns came on at the end of the night, which was neat to ski under the snow guns. So that was a lot of fun. As much as I could have at the time. But like I said, then a really close dear friend of mine lost his mother, who I knew pretty well last week. So I was at a funeral last week, and then a cousin-in-law was killed last week in an accident. He was electrocuted by power lines while he was working up on top of he was working with fiber optics, and somehow, from what I could tell, the cherry picker hit the power lines and he was electrocuted. So we'll be going to a funeral tomorrow too. So, and how does this relate back to being an entrepreneur? Well, I still have to work tomorrow. I still have to work Wednesday. I still have to work Thursday. So sometimes you don't want to be at work. Sometimes you don't want to think about the business, and that's okay sometimes. But there are times where you just have to say, look, I know I don't feel like doing this right now. I know I don't feel like I can do this right now, but the reality is that you can and you will.
and if you think about what happens if you don't do the work, are you enjoying where you are as an entrepreneur and enjoying the revenue that's being spun off and the autonomy, et cetera? Are you willing to let it slide for what is a snapshot of time in life?
Right. Right. And that's the way you have to think about it. Like I said, Saturday I was unable to do it. I just could not do anything Saturday. I went to bed, like I said, around 9 o'clock and didn't wake up till 10:30 the next morning. So what's that, 13 hours or so of sleep. Obviously I woke up in the middle of the night a few times, but um I didn't let that become the same thing on Sunday. I didn't let that become the same thing today. You can have the bad days, but it's amazing to me when I teach classes on things like time management or project management or conflict management or leading productive teams or Excel or PowerPoint or Word or whatever the computer class is. Um, I always stress to my students that having knowledge and applying the knowledge are two distinctly different things. Sometimes I know what to do, but for whatever reason, today I'm not able to do it or I'm not able to do it very well. Like time management, I know what I should be doing, but that doesn't mean that I always follow my own advice. And that doesn't make me a hypocrite. It doesn't make the information invalid. I think, and I probably have said this before because this is one of my go-tos, but if a smoker who knows that smoking isn't good for you, I think any smoker would tell you that I smoke despite the fact that smoking is bad. Well, if a smoker came up to you and said, whatever you do, don't pick up cigarettes, don't smoke, they're terrible for your health, would you then say, well, I'm not listening to you because you're a smoker? Since you're hypocritical, then I'm going to smoke cigarettes. That doesn't make the information bad information. It just means that the person's not following that, not putting it into practice. That's all.
I agree. And to that example about smoking, it could also be that that person has not found the strength or their why to stop smoking.
Right.
But
That's the
they
truth.
know that it's not good for them. And they're trying to say, hey, don't do what I'm doing because I know I'm not feeling well from it, or I know one day something might happen. It could be that as well.
I think sometimes we see what we consider hypocrisy as a reason not to listen to the advice. I think good advice can come from flawed sources. It doesn't mean that it's always we should ignore it. But I have friends like that, like, oh well, this person doesn't listen. So I'll give you another example with climate change. When people say, well, these people who are proponents of trying to mitigate climate change, well, they fly, jet planes, and they ride in limos, and they do all that. That's fine. Maybe they're not walking the walk the way they should, but that doesn't make their message bad. I mean, I don't think unless you don't agree with the science, which to me, if you're not a scientist, you can have an opinion, but that doesn't mean it's a valid opinion. When people ask me, because I'm into meteorology, they'll say to me, well, what are your thoughts on climate change? And I said, well, you got to listen to the experts. I'm not one of them. My opinion doesn't really matter much because I don't have the background to give you a good opinion. Now, if you ask me, what do I believe? I believe the majority of scientists. But regardless, if I said to you, if I was a climatologist and I said, well, you know what, we're really going to have to cut back on our fossil fuels, and we're going to have to cut back on this and that, and I rode around in limos and flew in private jets, that doesn't mean that the information is bad. It just means I'm not walking the talk. That's all.
And that happens quite often, doesn't it? That
It does.
it happens. Right. It doesn't mean that the message is incorrect or that it's
Right.
flawed.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
that's a really good point.
I think we do a lot of that. We try to catch people. Oh, they're not listening. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. Yeah, my daughter was amazed one time when she asked me an Excel question. Now, I've been training Excel for 23 years, and she could not believe that I didn't have an answer to a question for her on Excel. Like, how is that even possible? You're an Excel expert, and you've been doing it 23 years. You got to know all the answers. Well, who knows all the answers? I mean, I don't think there's any human being alive that knows all the answers anywhere. I mean, think of doctors, right? If you're a cardiologist and you ask a cardiologist, what should we do for ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease? The cardiologist, if they're any good, are going to say, that's not my area of the body. I work on the heart. You're going to have to talk to a gastroenterologist. And I think that, you know, for some reason, computers seems to be like you're a computer expert. So that means that you know everything about computers that there is to know. That's not the case. There are functions in Excel that are engineering functions. Now, if you're an engineer, you would look at those functions and say, wow, these are really great. These are going to help me so much. But I'm not an engineer. I don't have engineering training. So when I look at those functions, I can read them, but that doesn't mean I understand them. I don't have the background to do it. So, again, to be an expert, and a lot of entrepreneurs are thought of being experts in their field, you got to give them a break a little bit. They're not going to know everything. It's not going to be that they have every answer right at the tip of their fingers. It just doesn't work that way.
And that's a lot of pressure as well. And I
Sure.
think also as experts, we have expertise in a certain specific area of a larger subject. So, for example, you mentioned gastroenterologist. That doesn't mean that the gastroenterologist is going to be your surgeon. There's two different things typically.
Absolutely. And that happened to me, right? I had a gastroenterologist who found what was called high grade dysplasia in my colon. And then the surgeon was the one who removed my colon. And I remember I talked to my gastroenterologist wife, who became a friend, and I I told her I can't thank you and Dr. Prieto enough for saving my life. And she said to me, well, your surgeon saved your life. I said, well, both of you saved my life. Dr. Prieto found the problem and was able to get me to the right place to have the surgery so that I wouldn't die from the problem. So I don't look at it as a one person job. It was multiple people who got me the help that I needed.
And isn't that inspiring of confidence, knowing that I'm good at this, he's good at that, you're good at this, and then we know who to go to?
Right. I mean, even with mental illness, I go to a psychologist for the CBT, the cognitive behavioral therapy, but my psychologist is not an MD, so he can't prescribe medication. I go to a psychiatrist for the medication. So they both are in a similar field. They just do two different things. One works with you with the psychotherapy, and the other one works with you with the medication. So, uh, again, if I talk to my psychologist, he might have some ideas about medication, but he doesn't have all the answers that the psychiatrist does, because that's what the psychiatrist does.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thank you for being so candid and honest with our
Sure.
audience and with me. What can we do to motivate ourselves then? What are your thoughts? I mean, I know for me, I typically have this tape that's going on and on all the time, every day. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. And so what I do is I just go into action. I just look at my clipboard of the things that I have to do, and then I start doing them. And then the voice kind of goes away. And when I go to work out, I'm going to be pushing myself. Like today, I was drenched. My heart was racing. And I could have stopped at any time. People take breaks, and they even encourage you to take breaks. And for me, there's no breaks. If I take a break, then I'm taking a break for a long time. So you just have to push through. And if through, you're going to get to the other side where you're going to feel a different way. So that's kind of what I do. I say to myself, okay, this too shall pass. This is temporary. And as long as I'm still here and I've got my faculties about me, I can continue on to whatever it is my goals or my mission are.
Yeah, and I think I'll be candid again. What happened to me Saturday was I was already in a bad place because, like I said, it's been since November. I've been fighting, trying to find the right medication, trying to find the right therapy, and that gets grueling after a while for sure. But then you throw in a funeral and then the death of a family member, and maybe business isn't as good this year as it was last year. It's slightly down, which is frustrating. And then I went into the gym, and for me, I'm a pretty strong guy. I had 90-pound dumbbells in my hand, and usually I could throw them up on my shoulders and lift them about 5 times. Well, I couldn't even get them to my shoulders on Saturday. I think I was just so mentally wrought that I was physically weak. And it just got me angrier and angrier. And I felt like, my gosh, nothing works. My business is slowing down a little bit. We got all these deaths. I can't find the right drug combination. Now I'm weaker today in the gym. I can't. And I think that's what really threw me. That was kind of like the last straw. And I just said, what the hell with it. I'm just going to go and sleep the day away or the night away. But with that said, on Sunday, I was intimidated by the weights. I looked at them and I thought, oh my goodness, yesterday I tried to lift these and I couldn't even get them on my shoulders. And yet I was able to throw them up and put them up for 6 reps instead of 5. So, did I physically get stronger in 24 hours? No, of course not. It was the mental. I just said, you can do that. I mean, you can do that. So just do it. And I think that is how I got through. Now, does that mean next weekend I'm gonna be just as strong? I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. But if I'm bad on Saturday, you could bet that I'll be back in there on Sunday trying again.
I can just envision you doing that as well. Somebody asked me recently, how are you doing? And I said, I'm really thriving. And they said, wow, I don't see that. I see that you're really struggling. And I noticed that I started feeling deflated because whatever is going on with me, I try to look at it from a different perspective because, again, you can always look at the negative or the positive. And then I started thinking, you know what? I really am struggling. I'm really kidding myself. I'm really in denial. And then I thought, what value does that bring?
Why would they say that though? I don't understand why they would say
I, I
that to
don't,
you.
I don't, I guess they were concerned about me. But I think if I wear a t-shirt that has on it, I'm really struggling, or I'm thriving. I mean, even when I say I'm thriving, I feel better. If I say I'm struggling, then I feel this energy being pulled out of me. What do you
Yeah.
think, Justin?
Yeah, I think you can talk yourself in or out of anything. I mean, if you're paranoid that you're having a heart attack, you're going to have chest pains, you're going to have tingling in your arms, you're going to have all the symptoms of a heart attack. Now, that doesn't mean that you should ignore any symptoms, but you can talk yourself into a lot of different things. And I do that. I know better. I know better. I mean, with my therapy and I've been going to therapy now. I started going to therapy when I was 8 years old, 3 days a week. So it was pretty intensive for about a year. And then I had some time off. I went back into therapy between, I guess it was sixth grade to eighth grade. And then again, and I went, had some time off of therapy, went back again in 1997 and had been with the same psychologist since 97. So we're talking, you know, 20, 25, 26 years. So, even though I have the tools to not do that to myself, I do sometimes find myself talking myself into things that are negative, and then the body kind of follows. I think that's what happened on Saturday with the weights. I looked at them. I was like, oh my God, I'm tired. I really don't feel like lifting this weight. And I don't even know if I can do it. And I couldn't do it. I talked myself into being unable to do it. Sunday, the difference was I said, you know what? I'm not going to walk out of here as frustrated as I did yesterday. So these are going up one way or another. And I got 6 reps instead of 5. So, it's the body goes where the mind takes it, I think. And that doesn't mean that you can always be positive. I really don't think. I know that people aren't always positive. There are some people who try to portray that they're always an optimist and they're always positive. That's impossible. I don't think any of us could ever be that 100% of the time. Ultimately, I guess what you're looking at is to try to be that a majority of the time, and that's the difference.
Great points as always. I agree with you. I remember when I was in corporate, I was meeting with one of the executives where I was interviewing for this position, and he said, how would you describe yourself? An optimist, a pessimist, somewhere in the middle? And I said, oh, I'm an optimist. And he said, well, that's a shame because you need to be a realist. And I thought about that. And I think that you have to be realistic. You can't be living in some dream world and thinking there are
Sure,
magic wands and fairies coming around.
sure,
But at the same time, I really think that I can't say every situation, but I feel like most situations that I've encountered, you can look at it one way or you can look at it the other. And even though it's very bad, you can still find something positive about it that potentially it could have been worse. And that's how I am, that I'm always looking for that upside of it. If something's really bad, well, it could have been worse if this, or this. Well, I
sure.
could have ended up like that instead of like this. So that's just how I look at it. Now, do I always feel optimistic? No. Sometimes I feel afraid. Sometimes I feel I have anxiety, but I limit it. I will not let myself go for longer than, if it was something extreme, an hour, and that's it. And then I change my behavior. I change where I am. Maybe I go outside and go for a walk and I just clear my head and say, that's enough. It is enough. You need to move on because the way you're thinking is not going to help you. And it typically helps me. And just to conclude, when I go to do my workouts, I really push myself to the brink. I mean, everything is shaking, but I
Right.
will walk for 20 minutes or 30 minutes before I go in, mentally psyching myself up to do it, seeing myself do the work. And how do I feel when the class is over?
Yeah, that's important. You're pushing yourself to do things that you may not feel like doing at the time. Um, and I think that you have to, and like Dr. Jacqueline just said, when I work out, I am not the person who just does 3 sets of 10. Some people do that. They'll go to the gym, they'll lift the same amount of weight over and over again, 3 sets of 10. They stop at 10. I never stop until I hit what we call failure, total failure. So if I'm bench pressing a certain amount of weight, I bench press it until there's not one rep left in the can. I don't ever stop until I can't anymore. And that's, for me, I've done well with that. Now I'm getting older. Will it always be that way? I don't know. I mean, maybe I'll have to dial it back a little bit at some point, but um, for me, that's always been my success as far as bodybuilding or powerlifting and that type of thing. And with business, the same thing. I mean, it's the same principles. I don't, uh, I mean, there are certain things I know are not going to happen. I'm never going to be a billionaire. I mean, I just know that it's because the odds are so stacked against it. It's a ridiculous dream. Now, could I one day be a millionaire? I think that's possible. I think that that's something that could be on the table. Um, but I don't think I'll ever be, Bezos or any of these other, or Bill Gates or any of those guys. But um, you know, there's a difference between striving for what's real and then, trying to find rainbows and um, unicorns. I mean, there's certain things that you just can't do. For instance, when I was young, I wanted to be an NHL hockey player. Well, there's a certain amount of reality that tells you that you don't have the talent that you need when like 0.1% of hockey players actually ever make it to the minor leagues, let alone the NHL. So what I could do is push myself to be the best hockey player I could be at the time. And even now, I mean, I'm playing in a charity game in April, and I'm playing with some NHL players in this game. And I went to the rink a couple of weeks ago just to start to get back into it. I hadn't really played in 3 years, so I jumped on the ice, and I already was telling myself, you're going to embarrass yourself, you're going to be terrible, you're not going to be able to do anything. And sure enough, I couldn't. I was clumsy, and I was really having trouble controlling the puck, and all the things that I had feared were going to happen. And then last week, the second time out, I said, all right, look, you know what to do. You've done it before. You have it inside you. Just do it. And then I played better. Now, was I the best player on the ice? Not by a long shot, but I scored a couple of times and I controlled the puck better and I didn't embarrass myself. And I think that's the difference, was the confidence. I told myself, you've done this. This is not something that's so foreign to you. Yeah, you haven't done it in a while, but it'll come back. And it came back.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thanks.
I think also in the scenarios that you described, could it be possible that you were telling yourself that you wanted to do these things and be these things, but yet at the same time, you had other aspirations and you could not possibly do or be both?
Yeah, I think that there's you could spread yourself too thin. I think that people do that sometimes. They want to be the best at everything, and most of us are not going to be the best at anything. I mean, if you think about it, the best, there's only one best, and there are billions and billions of, I don't know what the number is now, but billions of people on earth. I mean, are you going to be the number one out of all the billions? Odds say no. I mean, but you can shoot to be the best you that you can be. And I think that that's probably what we have to do. And I don't know, again, I don't always take that to heart. I mean, my dad sat down and talked to me a couple of weeks ago because I was like, man, I'm trying to build the business and now it's 6 figures, but I see other people and they're making 7 figures, and damn it, I can't get there yet. And he said, you might never get there, but you could shoot to get there. But even if you don't, does that mean that you're a failure? And I think I have to think about that a little bit more. I don't really do a good job of that sometimes. I think, sky's the limit, and maybe the sky isn't the limit. Maybe you get up into the clouds a little bit, but you have to just be willing to say, look, I'm going to do the best that I can, and whatever that is, that is.
Well, Justin, what if the number wasn't the priority? What if it wasn't about 6 figures or 7 figures? What if you evaluated your success in other areas? So, in other words, how much passion do you have for what you're doing? How many people have you actually helped by the work that you provide? Aren't they measures of success as well?
I agree with you. I agree with you, and I don't think I always do a good job of thinking about that. I mean, I can't imagine over 23 years how many people I've trained and made better at their jobs, or helped to get a raise, or helped to get a new job, or whatever it is, or build their own business by teaching them skills that are really necessary to attain that. Um, But you're right. There are other ways to measure success. It's not always by money, but I think that, I always think, how nice would it be if I could go out and write a $10,000 tip to a waiter or a waitress. How great would it be to be a really, really rich person and be able to change lives in a dramatic way all the time? And that would be great. There's no doubt about that. That'd be fun. I mean, one thing I always wanted to do is at Christmas time is buy all the toys in a toy store and let just kids go run through and get all the toys, like underprivileged kids. That'd be pretty neat, to literally play Santa, something like that. And sometimes I get frustrated that that's probably never going to happen. Those things, I'm probably never going to write a $10,000 tip. I'm probably never going to buy out at a toy store, but I have to be happy with the things that I can change, the things that I can help people with. And I think it's good. It's good. I just think people like us, people who are entrepreneurs, we always want more, and I think that's in some ways a good thing, because that is what drives us, and that's what makes us entrepreneurs and makes us want to be successful and leads to success. But at the same time, it can be a detriment because you're never happy with what you have. You're always saying, well, yeah, I'm here, I can help 10 people, I want to help 10,000 people. That, I think that's where I personally need to kind of dial that back a little bit.
I appreciate what you're saying. I do. I think it also comes with, as much as we want to help and help as many people as we can, if we are grateful for who we have helped and for the value we are bringing, then I think in a way that helps temper that drive that maybe will never be met, because we
I,
always want more.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Sometimes easier said than done, though, right?
It's true.
Sometimes
It's true. It's like an example, which is going to sound so stupid, but it's so basic that people can understand it. Is I told you that for, I don't know if I said on the air or not, but for 21 days, I'm changing my lifestyle. So when I officially turn 60, I guess I can go the other way and just do whatever I want, which it seems ridiculous. But I find myself questioning myself. Why am I doing this? I'm not like thrilled that I'm doing it, because I know I'm making a sacrifice, but I know that those thoughts are a distraction, and they're always distractions, like little things that happen to kind of question our passion and our commitment to our why. So I said to myself, what is your why? Why do you want to do this? And I thought, the reason I want to do it is because after I'm 60, one day after 60, maybe the whole body's going to look different. Let me go the rest of this time. Maybe I can get a six pack, but after 60, I don't think it's going to be as easy. Is that a great why? No, it sounds ridiculous. I'm even laughing about it now. I mean, I don't even wear a bathing suit. I'm by myself. Who cares? Right? So then I say to myself, well, maybe I'll have the mac and cheese tonight. So it's just back and forth. And we
yeah.
have to determine, what is our why? How much energy do we have to commit to whatever it is that we're doing? And how can we be grateful and give ourselves some grace?
Yeah, and I think that's elusive for most of us. I think that
It
that's something that
is
we should. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I myself am, trying to lose a little bit of weight, and anytime you step on the scale and it's the same as it was the day before, it's very, very frustrating. Especially if you passed up, like you said, on the mac and cheese or the cake, or I like soda, so I'm not drinking any Coke or anything like that because it's got so much sugar in it. But yeah, again, you step on the scale and it says the same numbers it did the day before, and man, you just like, "Well, I'm going to pour two Cokes right down my throat right now because what's the point, right?" But you got to keep going, because if not, the numbers will go the other way, and that's not what the goal is, right? The why is you want to be healthy. I'm not trying to lose weight so that I can be a male model. I want to lose weight so that I have a lower blood pressure, and then I could be around longer for my kids and my wife, and be able to ski until I'm 70 something years old or 80 something years old, and play hockey until I'm 80. And if I don't start doing it now at 48, I might not be in a position to be able to do it then.
It's such a great point. And some of the team members we have here who are experts or specialists when it comes to health, what they've shared, and it really kind of was an eye opener for me, is that we want to reward ourselves. I want to reward myself with cake, with a glass of wine, with
Sure.
whatever it might be, but it's not good for us. So then I get into a pattern of, I'm not happy with that. And why am I being punished? But the punishment would be living however many years and being in a position where somebody has to take care of you and you're sitting staring at a television in another world. So we can do the things we need to do today to help slow that down or possibly offset it. And I think that that is a good tie in with working as an entrepreneur, that it's okay to have a down day. It's
Right.
okay to have maybe a down week. But if you're getting into that spiral and it's going for a longer period of time, other people are going to start to see it, whether it's your employees or if it's your clients, and then they start to get worried. And then there's that whole thing about trust. And is this person going to be able to manage whatever contract I have with them? Are they going to be able to show up, or do they need to take a real time out for a while?
Sure. Yeah, and that's always a concern with being as open as I am about mental illness. When people say to me, "What do you have to be depressed about?" You have a wife, you have two kids, and you have the house and the white picket fence, the whole thing. Well, I mean, do you ever say to somebody, "What do you have to be diabetes about, or what do you have to be cancer about, or what do you have to be colitis about?" It's a disease, and I can't. It's not just a matter of changing your mindset. That's part of it. That's part of the CBT, but there is a component of it being a disease, and you have to accept the fact that you might not be able to overcome it just by trying to push it out of your mind. So for me, I incorporate it into my day. So when I'm training, I don't have time to be depressed. I don't have time to think about it. I'm training people, so I'm much less likely to be dwelling on anything that's depressing. It's at night, or when there's downtime, or when there's something on my plate that's so difficult that I think, oh my goodness, I don't have the energy to do this. That's when the effort comes in, where you really have to push.
I think also that the drive and the push is necessary, but it's also important to take that breath and take that time.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I did that Saturday when I slept for 13 hours. I think that was
Good
my
for
time
you. That's
to.
great. Yeah, why
Yeah,
not?
yeah. And sometimes it feels like if you're asleep, you're not thinking. So that's part of this cycle depression. The problem is some people with depression will get into that cycle and then do that every day. And that's where the danger comes in, because then, like you said, you could lose the business. You could get into a hole that becomes so deep that you need a ladder to get out of it. So
Right.
there's time to accept it, and to a- try to get some relief by sleeping or doing something else, and then there's time to say, you know what, the hell with it, I'm just going to push through.
Exactly. Exactly. Once again, just complete authenticity and transparency from you. Thank you. As you know, we
Thank
have
you.
another show to go to. We've got
Yeah,
your
I'm looking
banner
forward to
up.
that one.
Yeah, I am too. How can people reach you, and what are the services and value that you can provide to our audience, Justin?
Yeah, if you're looking for any kind of corporate training, I do training for companies. I do one-on-one training with people. I do a lot of the Microsoft applications like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Access, Visio, Project, Teams, all these different apps. More on my website. I also do soft skills training, time management, project management, uh, conflict management, team building, leadership, empowerment, things like that. And my website is www.justforyoutc, all spelled out, JUSTFORYOUTC.com. And my phone number is 610-324-5545. You can reach out to me that way, and schedule a class with me if you'd like. And I also have a charity for folks with Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, and those with an ostomy, and that's Checkmates Charity. www.checkmatescharity.com. And my email there is justin@checkmates, plural, charity.com. So I'm hoping in 2024 to do our NHL alumni game again. So I'm looking forward to that.
And we're looking forward to supporting you with that. Definitely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Justin and I are going to be coming right back. Our next show is Take Steps and Kick IBD. Woo!
Yes.
I'm pretty excited about that. So
Me
we'll
too.
be back. We have a very special guest. So please stay with us and join us in just a few minutes. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.